1:30. Good afternoon, everyone. Currently, Dennis is at another meeting, so Rick Dahl and I are at the meeting, which is a commissioner conference, the usual commissioner conference. Um, Hopefully, we will take care of something rather quickly before we do anything else, and I'm looking for either David Berger or Doug Jensen. I don't see them. Maybe Kelly will alert me. I'm very sensitive to their time because they're very heavily overloaded. So the moment they come on, we'll recess into some other item, I think. But at the moment, let's proceed with the normal order of business, which says human resources requests.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jessica Warren, Human Resources. First item I have comes from the Prosecuting Attorney's Office and Office of Public Defense. I provided you with an overview of the proposal, but we'd like to propose some reclassification requests for the attorneys in their offices. I think over the last couple of years, recruitment and retention for attorneys has become increasingly difficult. We're not seeing very many applicants come in, and attorneys are leaving as well. So it's been hard to retain staff with both offices. Prior to our 2020 salary survey, attorneys were on a different scale with larger step increases than the rest of the county. With the 2020 salary survey, they were put on the same salary schedule as the rest of the county, which is about 2.5% step increases each year. And we'd like to go back to something more similar to that.
It's Doug. Hold on a second, please.
Yeah.
Hi. Hello? I'm sorry, I don't know what happened. Please continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
So yeah, we'd like to go back to something more similar to what we had prior to 2020. The proposal is to remove every other step on their 9-step scale, as well as add additional steps at the top to make up for us being pretty far behind our comparables at top steps, to hopefully help decrease that gap and help retain attorneys longer term. So they would go from 9 steps at 2.5% increases to 6 steps at about 5% increase between each step. Steps 4 through 6 would remain discretionary step increases. These are unique to our attorney positions as well, to where the office has discretion to offer these step increases versus just the automatic step increases. You have any questions?
It may be my memory. Were there 6 steps yesterday when we talked about this? Because it sounded like there was a transition from the first step increase would be essentially automatic.
Yeah, so
Okay, go ahead.
Jessica indicates 9 steps to 6 steps. If you recall, years ago, it used to just be there was 9 steps total. Steps 1 through 6 were years of service. 7, 8, 9 were discretionary. Those were about 10% raises for the first 6 steps, 5% for the last 3 steps. And then with the change, where it was 4 years ago, it went from a total of 9 steps to attorney, DPA, and senior DPA that each had 9 steps. So it went from 9 steps total to 18 steps total. This reverts it back to, it maintains a DPA and senior DPA, But rather than 9 steps in each of those designations, it brings it down to 6 for a total of 12 steps. So part of the discussion was, is yes, you still keep those top 3 steps being discretionary in nature by their supervisor or boss. So rather than 7, 8, and 9, it's 4, 5, and 6 under each of those designations.
So if I'm a new hire and I begin in step number 1, then I'm gonna get step number 2 after a year.
You would get 2 and 3, and then
And that's where I guess I recalled 2, but not 3 being automatic. Okay, I just want to clarify that. You didn't change that on me, did you?
no.
Okay.
And the color code that's in front of you might throw you off a little bit. That's understandable because the green is meant to indicate the discretionary steps. Step 3 is in green, but that's our
Mhm.
intention.
These are different.
And then the ones you were sent are different. So that all the yellow indicate the automatic steps, the green indicate the discretionary steps.
Okay. And maybe for the public, you could tell us what discretionary means.
So discretionary, our normal county employees automatically receive a step increase after 1 year in each year until they reach top step. Then they just receive a COLA if the COLA is available. Discretionary means it would be at the discretion of Ryan and Ian on if they would offer those step increases at the top, so they're not automatic. And discretionary based on, performance, a number of factors could go into that, but I would say it's
Okay.
more of a performance-based discretionary step increase.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I think the whole idea was to get us a little more competitive, so you draw some applicants.
Hold on to them once you get them.
Yeah. Yeah, and you still have a discretionary phase in there if they're not cutting it, so to speak, then.
Correct. And that would allow us to actually have a productive conversation with them once they hit kind of that precipice of it's time for a discretionary step. Well, let's sit down and chat about why this year you're not getting it. And
Yeah.
what we could do over the next year when we're back here to get you there. So it serves as a motivational tool as well.
And refresh me, sorry, I know we talked on the first ones, I know it's a time system, but during that, and I don't know enough about your industry, during that time, is there education, is there things they have to improve or they have to do between those years other than just time?
Yes, especially for defense counsel, you qualify by trial. So any case that's actually brought to a jury trial, put to a jury to deliberate and reach a verdict, that's kind of a notch on the belt, a button on your sleeve there. It qualifies you. So you can't just walk into criminal defense court-appointed work and try a murder case. You have to cut your teeth doing DUIs, misdemeanors, all ranges for a certain amount of cases where juries give a certain amount of verdicts. They've actually successfully put a case up to a jury, a judge has accepted it, allowed you to proceed to that limitation. Once you qualify by 5 jury verdicts, you can then kind of step up into the realm of felonies. And then in felonies, there's low-level felonies, Class Cs. You can't just step into doing Class Bs and Class As. Once again, in Superior Court, you then have to see enough trials through to verdict in Superior Court to qualify for violent crimes, sex crimes, murders, and so forth.
So is it fair to say that even though the first 3 years are automatic, there's still things that you have to accomplish as you move along in your career?
Most definitely.
Okay.
Yep.
And obviously, depending on what type of attrition is going through your office, new employees or just flat out performance, people move at variable
Yeah,
paces.
if they can't keep up with some of those expectations, then that's kind of a performance issue you guys
Yes.
deal with.
And I
Yes.
think there's another built-in, well, there's already an existing, but also an additional layer here. Because obviously the DPA and senior DPA within each of those matrices, there's the 3 steps that happen, then there's the 3 discretionary steps, but the additional built-in layer of performance base there is going from DPA to senior DPA or attorney, whatever you call yours, attorney and senior attorney. So there's that additional layer between, basically in the middle of the progression.
Yeah, it just for clarification, I think I would have characterized it as your attorney is expected to perform attorney services over some amount of time. You must handle three trials, otherwise you don't get the automatic increment.
Exactly. And all the while they're working
Right.
in district court, hundreds of cases, and in Superior Court, dozens and dozens of
Yeah.
cases all the same time.
And all along, you reserve the judgment to continue employment or not, depending
Exactly.
on case.
Yeah, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, I'm okay with this. I always like it when the people in charge have options to incentivize.
Yeah, and I like in those last years, and you're really being able to identify top performers from others.
Great.
That was easy, wasn't it?
That was easy, yes. Couple
Okay.
months in the making, bud. All worth it.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, do you have some more?
I do, but I do see that Doug's on. If you
Yeah,
wanted
Doug
to
is on.
conference.
Let's go ahead and
Visit with Doug.
maybe you would take over at this point and say what you'd like to find out about.
Yeah. We had a discussion this morning, Doug, on the public facility district.
Mhm.
And because there was an article in the paper where I know they've been working with getting a hotel chain in down by the event center.
Yes.
And it had some comments about government competing with private and people having issue with that. And so maybe you could explain the facility district a little more. I'm trying to it's a little hard for me to understand that because whether they own the property or I own the property as a person and I contract with somebody said, I want a hotel here and they think it's all right. I'm having trouble distinguishing, are we really government versus private or is it just competition?
Well, let me start with a little history on it. I'll show you how the county approached this. And I think the way we approached it was in keeping with general customs and culture of governance in the county by the Board of Commissioners over the years. So shortly after I started here in 2012, seems like yesterday, we were approached to jointly engage by the Public Facilities District, the Expo folks, to engage a person interested in developing a hotel next to the Expo Center. The theory being is that the county would provide the land and financing for the hotel. They would then operate it and give it back to the county in, I think it was 30 years, something of that nature. Both this office and your former finance director, Claire, discussed the matter with the board, expressed reservations about that approach, not the least of which is, and I know Commissioner Morton and I have had these discussions about the limitations in Washington about public-private partnerships. The proposal the math just didn't work, at least in our opinion. The board looked at it and stepped back from it. So fast forward, and the City of Longview forms a public development authority, which under Title 35, which means the PDA is an independent municipal entity. While at the same time, still being in some respects attached to its creator, but not liability wise. So it doesn't shift liability or claim onto its creator. That PD lobbied for the county to again engage directly with potential developers, with the PDA acting as a neutral negotiator, and the city of Longview's involvement being only that of a facilitator for permits. And again, our office as well as finance provided some feedback. I know Dana Gigler in particular was actively engaged with the board on this proposal. I went back through my notes briefly after talking with Commissioner Mortensen. And at least this office's position, as well as after discussion with the pool and finance, was that the better approach would be if this were a project that both the facilities district and the city were eager to develop, as well as its PDA, that a more reasoned approach would, particularly with the liability and complexity of a county working within municipal borders. Better approach in our recommendation would be that the county arrange a land transfer for lands across the street that could still be utilized, for overflow or other purposes by the fairgrounds in particular, whether for parking or for additional exhibits. And in return, we would trade a comparable value property across the way to the city of Longview, which statutorily can be done. You can trade property between municipal governments in Washington state. And the idea being that the city of Longview then would transfer property to its PDA, which again, it can do separately, and it did in fact do. So fast forward to 2017, that's when the land exchange occurred. The property was titled to the city of Longview. My recollection is the city of Longview then passed the property to its PDA, and any development that would be ongoing would be under the auspices of city of Longview and or its PDA. There was an additional issue that took a little bit more time to address, and that was the access issue. And so the county and the city worked out, I think, finalizing in 2019 with the recording of documents for access by extending the access as an actual city street. So at this point, really, the county is a neighbor, not a party to the development. Issues of development of the property as commercial is appropriate for a PDA, whether it's in keeping with the position of the board and the county's approach is distinct because it's simply not in our control and in our wheelhouse. Does that help?
Yeah, that
So I
helps.
understand the comments
Yeah.
of the individuals that spoke this morning. I did listen. But really the concerns they have would have to be raised with the city of Longview and its PDA as to whether or not this is good governance or not.
Yeah, and I would assume that probably goes, if a hotel, they make a deal with a hotel to build there, there's a whole building and there's a whole permit process to run through before that ever gets done.
Correct.
Yeah. So that would be the time to address some of those issues.
Yes, and in those, again, the permitting would go through the city of Longview.
Yeah.
Yeah, that wouldn't be something we'd have anything to say
Yeah.
about.
That helps a lot knowing the history and how that
Yeah, and
transferred and.
yeah, and Commissioner Mortensen, actually, you were part of the decision making that this was not something the county would pursue.
Right.
Back in 2016, is that we would, if this was something that the city of Longview and the Public Facilities District were eager to pursue, that we would, in the interest of whether it's economic development or just being a good neighbor, we would facilitate the transfer to the city, and we did.
Yeah, that was 2017. I wasn't in on 2016, but anyhow.
Yes, I mean, that was when, that's at the point of
Yeah.
whether you were doing the land transfers.
Right. Yeah,
And
and
that was very reasonable decision.
yeah, I won't talk about that so much, but there was another issue that I think Kim Boca, who's actually here, there were questions regarding exactly where is this property
yeah.
with respect to the fairgrounds and the event center itself. And I'm a little more tongue-tied than I would like to be, and so we have one who's less so, I hope.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Kim Bocut with the Event Center. The property that the PDA commonly known as our Carnival Grounds, the access point would be Fifth Avenue into the fairgrounds. There is currently buildings where the access point will be, and the large grassy area that is to the east of the conference center is where the hotel. Apologize, I would have brought a map.
Oh, yeah, no, could you speak into the microphone more closely? And then so, yeah, currently, what's the name of the street that goes between the 7th and 3rd or something like that?
I was just over there. It's Washington.
Washington Street,
That's
correct.
what I thought. It's
Yep.
called Washington
Yeah.
Street, not
Yes.
Washington Way.
So Washington Street,
Yeah.
and that is the division between Longview and Kelso. So Fifth Avenue that comes to the fairgrounds from
Comes into
Kelso
Washington like
tees
this.
into Washington Street.
Okay, so if I'm at the
That's-
Hall of Justice and I'm going out Washington Way past the morgue, I
Washington Street,
typically enter the fairgrounds through the chain link fence there.
correct.
How will that change?
That is between Fifth and Fourth Avenue is where that entrance is now. The entrance would then be moved further west by half a block.
Okay, and the area east, you said that, you're not thinking across the street from 7th Avenue, are you?
No, so when you pull into the fairgrounds now at the chain link fence,
Yeah,
that wide open grass space that you are facing right when you pull into the fairgrounds, you're looking south into the fairgrounds. That's our carnival, what we call our carnival grounds.
yeah.
That is where the hotel would be.
What will happen to the carnivals?
You'll have to reevaluate where we put everything for the fair.
But you've got the space,
We do have the space. We have a total of 47 acres there, so.
okay? And Doug, you probably remember, maybe Kim remembers also, we have a time constraint on when some of this has to be performed. Could you refresh us on that?
I don't recall. I really don't. I'd have to go back through my notes, and it's been a few years.
Yeah,
But I do recall there was a issue of revision.
right.
I don't know if that made it into the final agreement. I know there was back and forth with the city and the PDA and the Public Facilities District. I'd have to check to see what the final documents look like.
Yeah, I hope the reversion's in there because that was one thing I was a little concerned about is the fairgrounds are kind of nice the way they are, nice and rectangular, if you will, or something like that. And to carve a hole out of it made me a little uncomfortable. So if it didn't go through, then I'd want it to be available to us for doing other things.
Sure.
So I think we're pretty close to a deadline. Historically, I think we had some hotel chain that was interested. And then COVID struck and a bunch of other stuff. I don't know if it was prior to COVID that it fell through. Where do we stand now?
I am not part of the PDA. However, we do get updates at our regular PFD meetings. And the last update that I received was that there is an interested party that has put some earnest money down, and they have a timeline to have a final plan to the PDA. And I believe that deadline is this week.
Ooh. Timely question.
Right, that's what I
Mr. Dahl.
recall too.
Yeah,
I don't know the exact date, but I know it was some time this week, so I'm not sure. But it is this week that that hotel company has that deadline. And back to your previous question, I do believe there is a sunset clause on the PDA contract with the land swap. And I believe that's, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but I know it's 2024, 2025. And there was some back and forth on that because I know that there was an extension mentioned, but I don't know if that
Pardon me.
actually. Go ahead.
I'm looking right now. See, I've got one of the documents. It's not, I show February of 2020, February 14th of 2024. At least on the version I have. It was signed by the board.
That
Yeah.
sounds correct.
okay. And then just for any citizens who are, I mean, the fairgrounds are pretty loved around here. So the hotel, you will have to tear some of the buildings out that are in the way.
That's correct. We would need to remove 2 buildings.
And remove means they won't be replaced or they might be replaced.
There is discussion from the PFD board to replace the square footage of those buildings elsewhere on the grounds.
Okay,
The current buildings would be the natural resource building is what it's called. And I don't know the exact building numbers. And then the second would be the dog building. Both buildings were built, I believe, in the early 50s.
okay, thank you.
Yeah. That-
Quite
Great.
nice of the two of you, much
Yeah.
appreciated.
You're welcome.
Very much appreciated. Thank you.
And thank you, Jessica.
Okay. Next item I have comes from Public Works. Back in June with the reorganization to Public Services, they were approved to fill they have a part-time GIS position into a full-time position. Since then, they've kind of worked on the job description and they'd like to change that position to an Engineer Tech 3 position with a specialty in GIS at salary grade 230.
So this isn't like a bait and switch. It's actually saying that we don't have enough for a single GIS person. So we'd like to expand it a little bit.
Savannah's here. I wasn't here during that original discussion, so she might have some historical knowledge.
Hello, can you repeat the question?
I heard part of it and I didn't hear the rest.
Oh, yeah, repeating the question is, I always want to see something just totally laid out so we can properly assess. So this was a GIS person. You're not trying to tell us you don't need GIS services. You're trying to say we can use this person more broadly than just GIS. And so we will still maintain GIS expertise, but we'd like to expand the job description to include other things.
Yes, and to expand on that, it actually is a half-time position that we've split historically with building and planning. So in June, when we came to the board to request this position, because we recognize the need to have a full-time GIS position at Public Works. With the current individual who's in that position, we rely heavily on them and they're only there part-time. So when we came to the board, we said, we would really need this full-time position. We didn't have a job description nor a class yet established. So we've been working on that and working with our Engineer Tech 3s to develop this. So that's kind of why it took a little while. And that's why we're here now today is to say you approved it, but here's more specifics to the position. So we have a job description developed, and then we also would like to place it in an Engineer Tech 3 class.
So if we approved it, you're asking us to approve it again?
Well, you approved it, but this is to clarify because we didn't have all this information to
Oh,
you the
okay.
first time. So,
Yeah, so
Yeah.
important to us, I think, is we're pretty thin in terms of GIS expertise, right?
yes,
So we are addressing that in part.
we are,
So we're not just one person dependent.
correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I will say I do appreciate when you guys come back and say, hey, we think this fits a
Oh,
little
yeah.
bit better. We have a little information. So I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Absolutely.
And then my only other two items, I'd like to request 2 executive sessions, one to discuss the performance of a public employee and one for collective bargaining.
Okay, let me, do you have everybody you need for those meetings?
Mhm.
Okay,
And we can wait until the end of this meeting if you have other items.
let me see what else is on here. Miscellaneous, Rick, do you have miscellaneous?
No, my miscellaneous we covered. That was,
Excellent. Okay, citizen comments. Have we heard any citizen comments? I haven't seen any hands come up. So let's go ahead and do this. So the first executive session is a performance of a public employee. And how much time do you need on that?
5 minutes.
Our clerk is assiduously noting that. And for contract negotiations?
Another 5 minutes.
Oh. Okay. So we will recess into 2 executive sessions as has been outlined. And we will do that starting at 2:05, let's say. Make it a nice round number. It was 3 minutes to collect our thoughts. Okay, thank you. So we will recess until 2:05, at which case we will start again with 2 executive sessions, and we'll be back out here to close out the session.
your mic.
Welcome back. We're back from the recess, and we're pretty close to the time estimated, so I applaud everybody for that. And no decisions were made in the meeting. And as usual, we wouldn't be able to do that anyhow. So,
Hello again, Jessica Warren, Human Resources. I have a couple items to request. Based off of the reclassification that was approved with the Prosecuting Attorney's Office and Office of Public Defense, we're requesting to place the Chief Criminal Deputy and Chief Civil Deputy in the Prosecuting Attorney's Office at top step, which is step 6.
I agree.
so we're okay with that?
Okay.
Thank you.
Next item comes from Public Works. John Wolford is an operator who is demoting to Kalama Shop. With this, they would like to request that instead of the step 1 that he would normally be placed at, he be placed at step 5 of operator 1 at 2652.
I agree.
I'm okay with that. I would modify a little bit how it was said, just because demotion might confuse people and think it's a negative.
Understood. Voluntarily, he's moving from solid waste operator 3 to operator 1 in the Kalama Shop.
Excellent.
And then the last item I have, Susan Tibbles, she promoted to operator 3 back on November 1st, 2022. With that promotion, it reset her step date to November 1st, 2023. However, her seniority date is May 1st. So they are requesting to go back to her original step date with her seniority date and have her receive her step increase on May 1st, 2023.
I'm okay with that.
Good?
Okay,
We're good.
thank you. That's all I got.
So we'll do thank you. We'll do a miscellaneous, which occurred to me. What's the follow-up on the letter that we pulled out of the consent agenda today? So I think I think we want to convene with, I'm sorry, you were going to,
Well, I agree. I think we need to kind of convene and talk that. We might involve Doug to give us a little guidance on how to approach that.
Doug, Doug Jensen regarding, let's reconvene or let's find out first. Currently in the workings is trying to figure out if that letter actually has been sent.
If it hasn't been sent, then that makes it easier.
Yeah, let's assume it hasn't been sent. I think the intent of the letter was just to maintain our name as a placeholder. Yes, we'd like to
Right.
entertain what's going on there. And I think there's enough interest by a joint venture or something like that. If certainly, I think Jeff Wilson has ideas there, and I'm very fond of his ideas a majority of the time.
Yeah.
And if someone is, if the letter has been sent, then I guess you're right. When we find out,
Yeah, we'd have to, well, and I'm sure Doug would help us on that and how to send and say, we're okay with the extension. We're not okay with committing ourselves to any liabilities or other parts of it.
at this point in time, it is much too premature for anything other than our interest still is there.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see, I've got one Q&A. Okay, that one is not so useful. What's the other one? Apparently, my job is to clean up the filthy motels in Cowlitz County.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that, but okay.
And
Enough of that.
it's part of that and other things as assigned.
Yeah, I don't think there was anything particularly accurate in any of those, and
Mhm.
there's nothing I want to add to that. So, with your approval, we adjourn.
Adjourn.
We are adjourned. Thank you.